Hey everybody, CT Hippo here. So I'm starting a new feature, I guess you'd call it, on the channel called I have no idea what I'm doing for projects where it's something I've never done before and I don't quite know how to do it, and you'll get to watch me make it up as I go along. So for the first installment we have this guy. This is a Delta Milwaukee 14-inch bandsaw. Scott picked it up at the fire department garage sale a few years ago for me, thinking that one of these days I would have my own shop and need a bandsaw. And then through a series of strange events, I ended up living here, and so now we have two. There's a regular one. So rather than have a second bandsaw, what I figured is I'd modify this guy to be a resaw. And what that is a saw for doing certain specific types of cuts. Grab a random board here. So imagine that this is a board of arbitrary size, and there's different kinds of cuts you can do. If you cut it that way, that's called a chop. If you cut it this way, that's a rip. If you cut it this way, so along the thickest axis, that's called resawing a board. And resaws tend to use very wide blades, frequently very thick blades, though the really good blades are the thinner ones, but you know, it's kind of a trade-off. But your typical bandsaw is going to have a blade that's 1/4 or maybe 3/8 wide, which is wide enough to be strong, relatively strong, and cut fairly straight, but still be able to go around sharp curves, which is usually what you want a bandsaw for. Typically for cutting straight lines, you're using your table saw, or usually your table saw. But for cutting big stuff, and this will frequently be, resawing is frequently done with either raw logs or recycled wood, as opposed to cutting up new or finished, mill finished material for a project. However, this saw is rather old. This is built sometime in the 50s, I believe. I feel like I should be more specific, but I have insufficient fucks to give to go look it up right now. And so it's a little old and a little dirty, and it needs a little bit of work. We took some saw blades and planer blades into the saw sharpening shop the other day, and I asked them what a resaw blade for this thing would cost, and they said, about $15. I said, make me one. So let's see here. I'll put you up there. So that's the regular old 1/4-inch blade on our Craftsman 12-inch bandsaw. This is the 1-inch by 1.1 tooth per inch blade for the resaw. It's a bigger, wider, more aggressive tooth. Leaves designed to cut through wood quickly, and it's going to kind of make a mess of it. It's going to leave a rougher edge. But again, this isn't so much for finished lumber. It goes through here, and then it goes through the planer to make it smooth. It's dustier than it really normally would be, just because we generate a lot of dust in here. Let's see if I can get this puppy apart and see what's going to be involved in rebuilding it. So I've got the new blade. Cover comes off like that. Got the new blade, and then the blade itself actually runs on these what are called tires. They're rubber outer tires over the upper wheel, upper and lower wheel. So I got the $15 blade from the saw shop, but the replacement polyurethane tires were about 35. Had to get them online. And to do this, I've got to take the wheels completely off to replace the tires. And to be honest with you, I have no idea how I'm going to do that. Don't know how this works, so guess we'll find out. Flip this puppy around here. This is the blade tensioner. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm running a pretty nasty upper respiratory infection, and so I'm trying really hard not to inhale any more of this shit than I have to. Which is why I'm brushing it all over the place and generally getting it right where I can inhale it. Normally I just take the air hose and blow that off, but I'm trying to avoid what I can. So this mechanism tensions the blade. It moves the axle for the upper wheel up and down, which increases tension. Use more tension on a wider blade because it's stronger. I'm going to crank this down. You probably can't see it on there, but there's actually markings on that. Let's see if that shows up here. So that's for a 3/4 blade, that's for a 3/8 blade, that's for a 1/4 inch blade, 1/2 inch. Can't read what that says. Anyway, typically these aren't really designed for 1-inch blades, but yeah, whatever. I think that just cranks down. Yes. That's come down, and it's basically free floating. And we're going to take the existing blade off. And to get this out of here, there's a plate here, and then there's a cut in the table. And I need to pop that plate out of there with a screwdriver. Gently. Move the guard up as far as we'll go for now. So the plate comes out. Blade comes out through the table. That washer goes back in there, and I'll put the blade someplace where I'll probably lose it and never see it again. Alright, looks like that just needs a 1/2 or a 5/8. Looks like that just needs a socket. So, let me go see what I can find in the socket compartment. Alright, let's see what's going to fit here. What are the odds of that? Put the guard down a little bit. think the wheel has to just come off here. It's not entirely clear to me that the wheel thinks that that's how that's going to work. Meantime, let's see if I can just get the old tire to come loose. On 1950s vintage, thoroughly fucked off rubber tire. Over here, look at the underlying wheel itself. Actually looks pretty good. Okay, I'll take that. Can we do the same thing down here? I have no idea. Put the nut back on the shaft. Interestingly enough, that nut takes a way bigger socket than the upper one did. There's the lower one. Again, the wheel actually looks pretty healthy. Take that for the answer. Alright, well, I'm going to go and find the new tires and we'll be back. And we're back. So, these are the new bandsaw tires. $35 from someplace called Polybelt on eBay. Did I mention I'm not firing all cylinders tonight? So the instructions on these things specifically say to dip them in hot water to make them more pliable before installing, followed by the wonderfully useful instruction, be careful after you dip them in hot water, they'll be hot. Well, that's kind of the point. Also came with this slightly ridiculous nail stuck in a dowel. I'm usually a big believer in if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid. But in this case, I'm inclined to believe that even if it works, it's still stupid. We'll find out. The idea here is that being a polymer, specifically polyurethane, soaking in the hot water will make them more pliable, more likely to stretch, fit over the ribs on the tires, and onto the wheels. We'll find out. Alright, so a few minutes have gone by. These have soaked. Let's see if I can get them on there. Oh, this is going to be tricky. I tell you already this is going to be tricky. Let's try clamping that. Did I mention I have no idea what I'm doing? Okay, well that's not working. Well, I'm gonna put the tire back in the water. While I try to figure out how to clamp something onto here. Grabbing the other tire, which should still be warm and supple. Doesn't that make it sound exciting? We'll try this again. Alright. Well, in a rare case of things going right for a change, the battery went dead and the memory card got full just as I finished off the putting the lower tire on. So, something worked. Let's try the upper. So once again, I'm going to start with clamping it. And I'm using one of the dominoes that I built for the cockpit ring project. Screwdriver and the tool that came with the this way. Like that. Well, that didn't suck nearly as badly as I thought it might. So, here comes the next challenge. Can I get this frickin' blade down its throat? I used to work in a lumber mill where we had a resaw that was about 20 feet tall and used blades that were 8 inches wide. Ow, ow. That's why you should probably wear gloves when you're doing this. Looks like there's some weirdness down here that I don't understand. That's table tilt mechanism. I'll show you what I'm dealing with here, and what part of this I don't quite understand. So this guide wheel rides on the back of the blade. This is obviously the blade. It needs to be adjusted somehow. Looks like this this bolt which goes out to this knob is how you do it, but it's kind of sticky. I'm not entirely clear on how this is supposed to work. So, I think this is for the table tilt. This is for the table tilt. This looks like it removes the entire blade guide assembly, which I don't really want to do. Let me see if I can find a pair of pliers and get on some traction on that. So I've got some all-purpose lubricant, some pliers. Let's see if we can make any headway here. Okay, well, if I move it like I'm loosening it, let's see if we can figure out what happens here. Okay. Seems that when I do that, the part I need to move that way moves that way. So let's keep doing that for a little bit. You know, let's see if I can get this whole assembly out of here, because I'm not sure how this is all supposed to work. Maybe not. That's just it. What's interesting is these knobs are knurled, which makes me quite confident that they're really supposed to be just turned with your fingers. And yet, it's taking a significant amount of force to turn them. So there's something not working like it should be, but I don't know what it is. I guess rinse, repeat. Okay, Allen wrench. It's going to be fun to get into. I think that's what's holding it up at this point. It's no longer the position of this, but the position of this stop. So, let's see if we find an Allen wrench and get that out of there. On the plus side, since it's a Delta Milwaukee from the mists of time, I I can be fairly confident it's going to take a standard Allen wrench, non-metric. Alright, so there's also an upper guide I may have to work on. There we go. So you can see, drop the Allen wrench. So there's this guide block. The blade needs to, there's this Allen screw that goes in here. Allen screw that goes in there. That keeps this guide block, and the guide block slides side to side like this. So the blade needs to go in between those two jaws, but it just dawned on me that this guide also needs to move. I'm not fully clear on how that's going to work either. Ow! And I just scratched the shit out of myself on the blade over here. Okay, so that seems to move that way. Start to get a feel for how this is probably supposed to work. Okay, I don't know if you can see. So out, loosening this Allen wrench, Allen screw, set screw. Get that guide block out of the way. So that moves the upper and lower guide blocks out of the way. And now I'm back to sitting against the wheel. I think, just maybe, that's moving the thingy I need in the way I need it to move. If I really want it to come this way. Get that out of there. That's interesting. I'm doing now is taking this guide bar off here. Just to give me more room to figure out what the actual fuck is going on around here. Okay. Oh, here we go. That'll come off like that. Haha. Nice. Okay. So, we've got several moving parts here. We've got this hexagonal bar. It moves like that. The bearing wheel goes on. So this guy goes on here like this. I don't think it cares which way it goes. Okay. Turning screws left-handed when you're right-handed, borders on impossible. So before I do that, I'm going to pull this bearing off, pull this whole assembly out, and give it a little quick clean up with a rag here. Just trying to get whatever residual mung out of there I can, because I like having my hands smell like WD-40. You know, manly smell. Rolls pretty good. All right, try this again. So let's see. Yes, this will pass through there like that. So I'm going to put the bearing on here, put the screw in there, rotate that like that. Bearing spins. Tighten it down real quick. That's how that goes together. We've got these two steel blade guides. Move like that. The blade sits between them. Okay, so we put that in there. And tighten the set screw. I'm not going to like really crank on it because odds are I'm going to have to move this thing 3 or 4 more times before we're done. Let's see where that puts us. I am going to tighten up the blade tensioner. Not like tight, but just to get it in the same same vicinity of where it needs to eventually live, just because that will hold the wheels and everything else in alignment to some extent. Which, okay, so it turns out, I should really make sure everything's on the tires and so on before I do that. Because otherwise, it just kind of fucks everything up and propagates that fuck up all the way back up the system. So, we're going to loosen that up. Get it set on the tires like it should be. And try it again. Except we're still hung up on that. So what I'm doing here is trying to get this into the adjustment where I need it and get some lubrication all the way up and down it. This nut turns, it engages this detent, which moves the shaft back and forth. So I just sprayed that with some good old WD-40, and I'm trying to get it all the way up through there so I can use the full length of the of this shaft. Alright, well, as you're probably used to by now, battery died yet again. But I think I'm going to try a slightly different approach here. I'm going to try to pull the table off, give myself some more room to work. I'm not really sure how this mechanism works, and I kind of need to figure that out in order to all come together. Well, that's interesting. That doesn't move. I've still got a couple more up in there. This thing just shed some parts which look to be broken. So, file that away for future reference. This seems to have some broken parts in it. So I have to pay attention when I get this apart. See if I can figure out what those broken parts are and what, if any, I need to worry about. All right. So there's the underside of the table. You can see that there's 3 mounting holes for each one of these, but the part of the mounting mechanism here is broken on the, so it would be the back side. So that's clearly not doing anybody any good. I'm going to go ahead and put the nuts, bolts back in there, just so I don't lose them. I think the trunnion assembly we'll look at here in a minute is a fairly expensive part, so maybe that's why this thing was up for sale. So here's what's left. We've got what looks like a straight slot and a straight slot. That might be all that holds this on. So those 2 screws came out and the trunnion came off like that. And now I've just got to figure out what makes this assembly work, because I need this bearing that way by like quite a bit. So I think I'm gonna have to go put these on batteries on the charger, and we'll futz around with that some more in a minute. Okay, and we're back. So one thing I realized when I was getting this apart is that both of these, which are what the table rotates on, are pretty well broken. There's supposed to be 3. What's on the other one? There's supposed to be 3 mount points on each side, and we've got 1 functional mount point on each side. I have no idea if I can even get these things, and but I'll probably take a look online at some point. In the meantime, I'm going to put it back together kind of as it is, because yeah, I want to see this thing actually work. I finally got this mechanism figured out, what's going on here. So that's probably about as good as anything. So there's 2 screws here. One moves this blade guard, which supports the sides of the blade. That moves it. One thumb screw moves it back and forth. The other one, not really. Okay. So the one moves the blade guard back and forth. The other one moves the bearing back and forth, which supports the end. So if I got that all broken loose and lubricated and whatnot, now I think we're time to try to put this mess back together. Take those out. And I'm going to put the odds of my screwdriver will be any place close. So there's 2 alignment pins that hold this mechanism in place, and 2 bolts, screws. I'm going to call them screws because they've got a screwdriver hole that goes back in like that. Then I'll go ahead and put the table back on. And funnily enough, cast iron's heavy. Who would have guessed? kind of interesting. So it looks like can't get that fully into alignment with the guide cranked all the way over. I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. Fortunately, that one of these that isn't broken is in a really inconvenient place. But okay, well, I think I'm going to have to partially reassemble the broken parts here because they're going to support the they're going to provide support even though they're not all one piece like they're supposed to be. That back on like that. And then that acts as kind of an alignment system. Get the third one in place. Or so goes the theory. Oh, that's going to be a challenge. I'm just going to take this hand wheel out. See if that gives me a little bit better access in there. Started. All right, well, let's try the other side. The theory here being that if I get enough alignment points, eventually it'll kind of fall into place. Even if some of those alignment points are broken. this flashlight into the solution. So pause here while I figure out what the hell I'm doing. Ugh. That has to move. Back some. Loosen these. Thought that those would tend to hold it in alignment, but it looks like they're holding it out of alignment. Oh, that looks better. Let's see here. Oop. All right. Table's reattached. Then put the hand wheel back on. Get spring pressure here. Alright, table's reinstalled. Blade in. Put some tension on there. Okay, well, that's interesting. So what's going on here, and I didn't realize this. I knew that this moved the upper wheel up and down. I thought this was just a lock. But what it actually does is adjust the camber, like this, of the wheel. And use that for getting the blade to stay on the tire like it's supposed to. So, having unscrewed that significantly in getting the blade off, I now need to figure out where the hell the adjustment point on it is. It's been said you don't really own a tool, or anything else for that matter, until you've taken it apart and put it back together again. And I'm really starting to see the truth in that. A headache here is there's a lot of things that need to be aligned. This thing to be in its happy place. So you can see how this is supposed to work. These two blocks control the blade left and right, and it rides on this bearing. The back of the blade rides on this bearing. And then the same thing going on down below. What's interesting is that these two mechanisms, on the lower one, the side to side and the rear bearing, interfere with each other. So if you have to make a long adjustment, long travel adjustment, you have to move one, and then move the other, and then move the first one, and rinse, repeat, till you get it where you want it to be. Okay, I'm kind of liking that. So what I'm doing here is I've got it about where I think it needs to go. So I'm putting some more tension on it, running it through my hand. I'm tightening them up. Oh, that seems pretty smooth. I'd like to get this tightened up a little bit more, but a really inconvenient spot. And I don't know if I can reach it. Even if I can reach it, I'm not sure that I can really adjust it. So, I think I'm going to not mess with that too much for the moment. Blade guard back in with this giant laminated blade. Barely. I don't think this thing was really designed for 1-inch blades. I'm making it work. I think I'm making it work. Ooh. But I wasn't really designed for it. Chatter there. went dead there for a second. But, and we're back. Okay, that's problematic. So, looks like I might need some spacers. So I need to put some spacers on this. So I'm going to find some washers that are suitable size. It's probably a 5/16. Clearly 3/8. Sounds good. Let's see how the bottom one looks. Okay, now I guess it's time for a quick operational test. Double check that we're recording here, and we are. I'm going to stand back as far as I can and throw the switch. That's clearly a little. Well, okay, something's not right in there, but I'm not entirely sure what it might be. I think I'll end the recording now. and try to figure out what to do next. So, end result for now is I'm going to declare defeat. It's always been kind of an anemic motor. Not sure what the... yeah, well, you can see the builder plate's completely gone. Not sure what the rating on that was, but it's always been kind of anemic, and with the additional drag from the new blade and the higher tension and whatnot, it just can't turn it over. So, the cheap Chinese tool store has 3 horsepower, 220 AC motors for like $170, and I'm sure they go on sale every so often. So I think for right now, I'm going to put the covers back on it and put it away, and at some point in the not too distant future, replace the motor. I don't see anything obviously wrong in there. Everything seems to be moving reasonably smoothly. I mean, it's not binding, it's not grating. You know, it's not doing the things that would tell me, oh, this is something I can fix. It just seems to be that it's not really designed for a 1-inch blade, and it's old and it's worn out and was anemic to begin with. And so I think the next step will be try to put a bigger motor on it, which should be pretty straightforward. It's just a straight belt drive here. So pull that lower pulley off, put it on a new motor, and yeah, I think this will work. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.